This is Iceland, the land of ice, but it could be equally named Fireland, which is not much of a paradox actually. The planet's raging interior simply found an outlet in a place lacking the sunlight. It is rather barren, infertile land, separated from the continent by 1,000 miles of cold, impetuous ocean. You can barely find a more hostile place for humans to settle than Iceland. And yeah, on the territory there is 40 active volcanoes, which is about 1 per 10,000 Icelanders, or about 1 per Manhattan block. Significant eruptions happen there once in 4 or 5 years, let alone other natural hazards that tourists are being warned about, such as earthquakes, avalanches, geysers, strong winds, sneaker waves, slips and falls, loose and sharp stones, snowstorms, or simply getting lost. But regardless, Iceland counts as the least dangerous country to live in. How? Why? But let's step back and look at what actually makes a place safe or dangerous. There are 2 ways you can be killed: by nature and by another human. And so meet 2 respective stats that measure that. The Global Peace Index. It considers the level of violence, militarization, and how people get along with one another. That's the ranking that Iceland has been winning for 12 years straight. There is no other country where you'd feel more secure walking down the streets. Isolation and harsh environment must have made the Icelandic people, the direct descendants of the Vikings, so friendly and helpful to each other, even to strangers. And so crime basically does not exist here. Nor does the military. Yes, Iceland is a nation without a standing army. If anything, there's guys to back them up. And the World Risk Index. And this is the one that takes into account a country's exposure and preparedness to natural hazards. And Iceland, even though it does not top the list, it is at number 6 out of 200 countries, and being the only one in top 40 with active volcanoes. If to look at the main causes Icelanders die, it's cardiovascular and aging-related diseases, pretty much as in other developed nations. And there's only a couple nature-related causes in the list, such as drowning. But the rate is very low, so low that more people get killed by water in Afghanistan than Iceland. And the deadliest natural event that happened in Iceland over the past 200 years were 2 avalanches in 1995 that took the lives of 34, which is just about the annual average for the USA. Over the last 200 years, earthquakes and volcanoes have killed 1 Icelander and some sheep. Strong earthquakes with the magnitude over 7 rarely strike there, once in a century on average. And the volcanoes, although numerous and often erupting, do not do much damage. Well, one can find lots of ways to be killed even in his own backyard. And being a citizen and a tourist involves different levels of risk. Guess who's more often being a jackass? Normally, yes. If some country has volcanoes, many fall victim to the eruptions. Among such unlucky nations are Colombia, Japan, the Philippines, Indonesia, of course. They are sitting on the subduction zones, one of the least stable places on Earth. And their volcanoes are mostly of the composite type, or stratovolcanoes. These conic volcanoes that we usually think of, that erupt real mad because of the structure, very dense lava, and accumulating tension. Such a volcano basically works like a clocked rifle. Iceland has been lucky in that regard. The tectonic plates diverge there and so don't accumulate much tension, unlike where plates collide or one goes under another. That's our planet's smash room. Most of Iceland's volcanoes are of the shield type, and they discharge in a much chiller way. Not boomish, but just pouring out liquid lava, though in large quantities. But thankfully, there's rarely people in the way of the flaming streams. Outside the capital region, Iceland's population density is about 1 person per square kilometer. And outside the coast, where the most towns and fewer volcanoes are located, the number goes to 0. And that's the point. If you live in Iceland, the danger won't be knocking at your door. But even when it does, maybe once in a lifetime, you'll have enough time for action and the relevant services will take care of you. But if you live on a powder keg, sooner or later it takes its toll. Iceland is no exception. In 1783-84, two Icelandic volcanoes erupted. And I think I can pronounce them, Laki and Grimstvon. Anyway, they released an extreme amount of sulfur dioxide, quite dangerous substance. 10,000 died on Iceland alone, a quarter of its population, and also 80% of sheep. Poor animals. And at least twice as many British were killed by the toxic cloud, let alone fallen crops and stock across the entire hemisphere, and also severe summer and winter that followed, and thus famine taking even more lives. As of 2019, you are most likely to be killed by Mother Nature on Vanuatu, and the odds you'll be affected by a hurricane, eruption, earthquake, or everything at the same time are 36%. In Iceland, it's less than 2%. And the smallest chance of being endangered by nature gives you Qatar, technically zero chance. And if to take just volcanoes and crime, the absolute winner would be El Salvador. This little nation has the highest murder rate in the world and the most active volcanoes per square whatever. Ironically, El Salvador translates as the savior. If we could calculate the world risk index for the late 1700s, I highly doubt that Iceland would be in top 6 or even top 60. And so our intuition was not that wrong. And that's the problem with all these rankings. For instance, how come is drowning Kiribati the 8th safest country and sea level rise is considered in that index? When it comes to nature, we cannot control and predict everything. As a breathing human, I would rather label a place safe if it is geologically stable, flattish, far enough from the ocean and desert, and with cool, moderate climate. But anyway, visiting Iceland is one of my dreams, and maybe yours too, and I'm sure everything will be fine as long as you follow the simple precautions. Although there might be one thing you would be risking there, is the thickness of your wallet. And even if bad stuff happens upon your visit to this majestic land, you can rely on the Westerlies to carry that away, probably to the British. Welcome to Iceland, the safest powder keg on the planet. And by the way, while I was making this video, my wife, who is a painter, she created these two paintings inspired by Iceland and all the fire and ice thing. If you like it, follow her Instagram for more art.